and welcome to my channel. My name is Anne and this is In Search of Wonder. Today we are going to be talking about my plans for 2024. Yes folks, 2024. That's the year, next year. My reading plans for 2024 and my reading journal that I created to keep track of my reading plans for 2024. So today I have this lovely mug that I got at a thrift store today for 10 cents because all of their Christmas merchandise was 90% off. And I got this mug for 10 cents, and you may have noticed that is not coffee in there, that is actually tea. I do occasionally drink tea. This is a Russian samovar tea that I got in Alaska when we went there earlier this year. It's so delicious. It's kind of very similar actually to a chai, like an Indian spicy kind of chai, and it has similar spices to what you would find in a chai. And it just has this sweetness to it. It's just so good. There's not actually any sweetener in it. It just has kind of a sweet flavor to it because of the spice oils that are in it. Anyway, absolutely delicious. So when it comes to reading plans for next year, I try to keep my reading plans pretty flexible. Every year at this time, I try to choose a couple of challenges that last the whole year that will help give me some focus to my reading, help me choose from the books that I have and kind of guide what I want to read throughout the year without constricting me, because I am very much a mood reader. I can force myself to read something, but I like to have mood reads available also at any given time. So I like to have a lot of flexibility in my reading plan and not to be really strict. And I also try not to overcommit myself to a lot of different things. So I stick to a couple of reading challenges that last the whole year long. And then I give myself some other kind of goals that I want to work on for the year, just to help me shape my reading choices, really, to be honest. So I started a new reading journal. The one that I have been using still has room in it, but I was kind of inspired by Katie at Paperbacks and Ponytails and Catherine at Read Journal Love and a couple of other booktubers who have really cool reading journals. I was kind of inspired to expand on mine a little bit and make it more functional for me and also prettier. So I like lettering. I enjoy lettering, but it's a new hobby for me and I've just dabbled in it a little bit. So I'm trying to do some lettering in this journal. And yeah, very amateur. So just know that. I am not showing this journal to you as like, this is an example of an amazing journal that you all can see so you can get ideas for your journal. No, this is me aping the journals of other people and trying to copy the lettering concepts that I have learned along the way and practicing them, really. Just practicing. This is me practicing. So anyway, so far it's been really fun. Just like my reading plans for the year, it's flexible, I'm functional. It's going to help shape my reading, but it's also not just for this coming year. I don't have to get everything done in this book in this year, this coming year. It will serve me for the next few years. I think this book will last 2 or 3 years for me, depending. So this is the actual journal. This was a gift to me last Christmas. It's a Jane Austen, well, it's based on Pride and Prejudice. So Pride and Prejudice classic journal, and has the famous opening sentence there embossed on the front cover. These are the end papers. So pretty, right? And then it has periodically these sketches with quotes from the books. Hocus pocus. All right. And it's lined, which maybe is not ideal, but I actually kind of like because it helps me keep my letters straight. So I'm going to go through and show you some of the things that I have in this journal, and that will kind of encompass my plans for the coming year for the most part. And yeah. Okay, so let's begin at the beginning with my favorite author, all the Austen I want to read. So I have a few author pages of authors that I want to read their entire catalog or library of books, and Austen being the first one. I've read most of them. In fact, I think I've read all of them, but I don't specifically remember Lady Susan. I remember Sanditon, sort of. I know for sure that I did read it. But the Watsons, I'm not sure that I read that. So anyway, I want to read all 3 of those for sure before I color in the hearts by their name. And this isn't necessarily something I have to do this year. This is just a general goal. These are things I eventually want to do. So it will just help me make choices this coming year. And then these are some Christian authors I would like to try. Katie Powner is one. Amanda Cox has written several books that sound really intriguing to me, like He Should Have Told the Bees and some others. Len Austen, can you believe I've never actually read anything by her? She's been around for a while, and many, many people consider her their favorite author. I've not read anything. Tia Cooper has a few books that intrigue me. I actually had one. I borrowed it from my sister for a long time, and so much time passed, and I hadn't gotten to it yet. I just gave the book back to her, but I do want to read by her. Laurie Benton has a lot of historical fiction that looks really interesting to me. Just haven't read it yet. And then other authors that I would like to try, but haven't. Neil Gaiman, I'm not exactly sure how you say his name, has quite a few that interest me. Just haven't gotten to them yet. And Cormac McCarthy, I have a copy of The Road by him, which just sounds really intriguing, the whole concept of it and the book. So I'm interested in trying that one out. And then Kate Quinn writes a lot of historical fiction, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, like focus in particular on actual historic characters. Maybe they're not actual historic characters, but I seem to recall that at least some of them are. But anyways, historical fiction that looks really good. So I'm interested in trying that. Hazel Gaynor also writes a lot of historical fiction, and I'm looking forward to trying some of her books. I am currently reading one by her, The Last Christmas in Paris. So we'll see if I finish getting through that. That's set in World War I. And then George Saunders in particular, there's a book that has been recommended to me by him, A Swim in the Pond in the Rain, I believe. So I want to read that one for sure. There's another one he wrote about Abraham Lincoln's son that sounds intriguing to me that I would like to try. Then this is the Dickens author page. So all of his full-length novels are here. And sadly, those little blue hearts are the only ones that I have read. I thought I had read more of his books than I have. I may have read David Copperfield. In fact, I think I have, but I didn't remember enough about it to say with any certainty that I did, so I didn't color that in. So I have a ways to go to read all the Dickens. I do love Dickens, so I don't know why I haven't read more of his. And then this is all the Bronte I want to read. I have read almost all the Bronte. And what's left is really just their poems, which I've read some, but not all. And, and their dad's poetry, that's the cottage poems. And then their brother's poetry, that's this one. And then their juvenilia, which I have not yet read. At least not the original. All right, this page got a little smudged. But these are some classic authors. Some of them are modern classic authors that I would like to try. Haven't yet. Kind of ridiculous. I should have, I feel like, read most of these by this point in my life, but I haven't yet, so I need to fix that. So they are on my list. Hopefully I get to all of them in 2024. We'll see. And then this is all the Lucy Maud Montgomery I want to read, which I have only read her Anne series and the Story Girl series that I know of for sure. I may have read the Emily series, and I feel like I have read some of her others, like maybe Jane of Lantern Hill, when I was younger, but I didn't remember. And that was long before Goodreads, so I didn't have any record of it. So I didn't color those in. A lot of these lower ones down here especially are more of collections of short stories rather than actual novels. So, but I have all her novels on here, plus some of the more well-known collections of short stories. These are some 2023 releases that I want to get to that I did not this year. So I need to get to them next year before the authors write new books that I can't keep on top of. So Within These Walls of Sorrow, I've read one book by Amanda Barratt, a Christmas novella, and it was really good. And so I started looking for some other books by her. This is her most recent one that I really want to read. And then To Win a Prince by Toni Shiloh. I've read a couple of books by her, and I'm curious about this one. It's not really the sort of storyline I typically read, but it intrigues me, so I want to give it a try. And then Where the Blue Sky Begins just sounds like a really fantastic book. I really want to read that one. And then The Rose and the Thistle. I love everything by Laura Frantz for the most part, so I just haven't gotten to that one yet. The Letter Tree, I've heard a lot of good things by Rachel Fordham, so I really want to read that one. The Weight of Air by Kimberly Duffy. I've read another book by her, I think just one, and I really enjoyed it. She has some really unique historical fiction, and I would like to try that one. And then The Words We Lost by Nicole Deese. Again, I've only read one, maybe two books by her, but really loved it. So that's another one by her that I'd like to try. This is just my tracker for the whole year. I think there are 100 books on here. So I would just color in a book as I finish to keep track of how many books I have read. And then for each month, I have a few pages dedicated to the books I read that month, just for like bullet journal style, to jot some quick notes about the book, my quick takes after I read it, and my rating, general rating of it, maybe a quote from the book if there's anything that sticks out to me. So I have a few blank pages for January. And then this is some books from my shelf that I really want to read, just haven't yet, just haven't picked them up. Gilead by Marianne Robinson, Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance, Midnight Library by Matt Haig, Children of the Stars by Mario Escobar, Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger, Rules of Civility by Immortals, Book Thief, I do not know how to say the author's name, Zuzak, something like that. Master and Commander by Patrick O'Brien, The Keeper of Lost Things, I don't remember who wrote that, and then for some reason I put Ordinary Grace in there twice. I don't plan to read it twice. For some reason I just put it there twice. And then some 2024 releases, and I left some blank spots so that I can put some others on there. These are ones I know for sure. The Seamstress of Acadie by Laura Frantz. First, I need to read the book from 2023 that I did not read. Then The Divine Proverb of Jerusalem by Sarah Brunsfeld. I really loved her book that she released this year, The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then The Lily of Ludgate Hill is the next book in the series by Mimi Matthews from The Bells of London. I read the sneak peek chapter that was at the end of the book number 2 in this series, and I'm really excited for book 3. Sounds like something I would really like. These are my a space to write in my nonfiction reads for 2024. I think I'm going to do a separate video with my books that my goal nonfiction books for next year, but I never reach my nonfiction reading goals. I make them and I don't reach them, but it's good to have goals, right? And I'm definitely not going to read that many nonfiction books. In 2024, I was just, putting dots there. So we'll see how many dots I get to. My goal is to always have a nonfiction and or a classic in progress at any given time. So my intellectual reading. These are my pages to jot down February reads. And then these are my challenges that I plan to do. And then I have my reading challenges for the year that I'm participating in. This is Chantel Reads All Day, her Read Your Shelf Challenge, which has 2 tracks this coming year, one based on Lucy Maud Montgomery and the other on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and with different prompts that come from their books. So you can choose a track, and then there are certain points where you can switch between them and go to a different track or whatever. So I'm looking forward to doing this one, and then I left space to write in the books that I choose and read from the challenge. And then this is another challenge I do every year, the Tea and Ink Society, which is a reading blog. She has, Elsie is the blogger. She has a classics reading challenge every year, and she changes up the prompts. And the basic rule is that it has to be a classic by which she's defined as something published before 1970. So this year's prompts are: in January, a classic you've never read; In February, a Nordic or Scandinavian classic, which the only one I know of for sure, well, I guess Pippi Longstocking would count, but also Kristen Lavransdatter is the only other one I know of. But I'll have to look into that and see. I mean, reading one of those would be fun. But anyways. And then March is a place or house name in the title. April is an epistolary novel, which is so fun. In May, about something by Lucy Maud Montgomery. June, something from the American South. And July is utopian or dystopian. August is a children's classic. September is a pastoral novel. October, a spooky classic. November, a book recommended by a friend. And December, a Shakespeare play, which is nice because I try to read a Shakespeare every year. So I can put that in December next year. And then I have a page here where I can write in the books that I end up reading. And then the other challenge I do is a What the Dickens Facebook book club, which is run by 3 Christian authors, Sarah E. Ladd, Christy Cameron, and Catherine Ray. And these are their picks for the coming year. I had never heard of the first one, A Girl in Winter by Philip Larkin. Know nothing about it. So if you know anything about that, let me know. And then A Red, Red Rose by Robert Burns, which I believe is just a poem, right? And then Grimm's Fairy Tales, Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, which I don't know if I'll read that one. I have read it before. I don't know that I need to read it again. The Old Man and the Sea by Hemingway, which I think I may have read, but I wouldn't mind reading again because I don't remember it. Anne of Green Gables, which I will probably put another book in this series in the place there because I'm working through that series, as I said. And then Around the World in 80 Days, which I have read, and again, not sure I want to reread or not, so I may not read that one. Emma by Jane Austen, which I love, so I'll definitely reread that one. Then The Secret of the Old Clock, that is Nancy Drew. So I grew up on Nancy Drew. I know I think that was the very first Nancy Drew book, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, that would be fun to read and revisit my childhood. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which I've never read, so that'll be a good push to read that one. The Giver by Lois Lowry, also have never read that. And Kidnapped Santa Claus by L. Frank Baum, which I have never read. So looking forward to some of those. That'll be a fun list. And then here I have a page where I can put my 5-star reads. So who knows how many 5 stars I'll actually hit, if I'll get that many or more than that. I may need more pages, but as I come across 5-star reads, as I read them, I will add them to that page. Then I have some blank pages for March. Tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me. And then a page for DNFs, as I don't finish them. I can write them down, and I left space to write the reason why, if it's, because of content or because it's boring or just not the right time, and I'll pick it up again later. So just so I can keep track of it. And that is all that I have in my book so far. I will add more pages for more months in the year as the time goes on, as the year goes on. And I will probably add more pages with other authors. I want to have a page for Elizabeth Gaskell and a page for Shakespeare with all of their works that I want to read. And any other lists that I come up with as the year goes on, I will add to that book. So that is my reading journal and my plans for 2024. Thank you so much for joining me, and let me know what your plans are for 2024, and let me know if you keep a reading journal like this or how you track your reading life. And I will see you next time. Bye. Hello, this is a future and with an addendum to the previous video. I have been wanting to make a video of the nonfiction books that I want to read in 2024, but first of all, I don't know when I can fit them into my calendar and when it makes sense to have a separate video of those. And then I was like, this video isn't that long, I'll just tack it on the end. So maybe it's a little haphazard or whatever, but here we go. These are the nonfiction books from my shelf that I have been wanting to read, some of them years, literally. And I'm going to put them, I'm going to make a separate page in my journal with just these specific nonfiction books as a goal to read in 2024. So And they're all physical books that I have, with one, possibly two exceptions. So here we go. The first one, which you may have seen in a weekly wrap-up video, that I got this for Christmas, The Practice of the Presence of God. Short little book. I should be able to squeeze this in somewhere next year, and I am looking forward to reading that one. Where'd you put it? My husband and I bought this almost a year ago when we went to a conference. It's a commentary on the first 11 chapters of Genesis. And I say commentary, but I think it describes itself as a commentary, but I think it's very readable. There's even like some pictures, and like the paragraphs are pretty short. It just looks very readable and very approachable. Not a dry, long, intensive sort of commentary. So I would like to read that one also. I put this one on my nonfiction November TBR earlier in 2023, but I did not get to it, but I really want to read it. So I'm hoping that I can get to this one this year. Signs of Life by David Jeremiah. It's about living out Christianity in a real, authentic way that reaches other people. So I think that would be a really helpful book for any believer to read, but I am particularly interested in reading that one. Would love to get to that this year. The Body Keeps the Score, which I borrowed more than a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, from a friend. I started it. I read as much as the prologue or the introduction. Yeah, here's my bookmark. That's how far I got. Not very far at all, because it was hard to read. Very hard to read. So the doctor who wrote this story, a psychiatrist, was talking about his work, his groundbreaking work, as I understand it, in dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder and how people handle or don't handle trauma in their lives. And what was very difficult for me was reading the examples that he gave of some of his clients and patients and the things that they suffered at the hands of other people. And reading about that kind of depravity and cruelty from people was very, very difficult. So I set it down after reading that first little bit, and I have not been able to go back to it yet. I keep thinking I would really like to read this book because the topic interests me and the author's work intrigues me, but I've not been able to bring myself to actually continue reading it. And my friend who let me borrow it, she has not read it either, and she says that she has been recommended not to read it because it may be too much for her. So I don't know, but I want to read it, but at the same time, I'm a little bit nervous about it. Then I've been wanting to read this one this is one of the ones that's been on my TBR for years. I finally picked it up somewhere a year or two ago, or recently, I don't know. The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. One of my sisters has read it. She said it was really good. I definitely want to read it. This history intrigues me. Here's the description. Doctors took her cells without asking. Those cells never died. They launched a medical revolution and a multi-million-dollar industry. More than 20 years later, her children found out their lives would never be the same. And this whole concept and all of the science and the medical industry surrounding this is something that interests me, that I have done some reading about. So I'm very curious to read this one. I just haven't actually picked it up to read it yet, but I would like to get to that this coming year. This one I've had my eye on since it came out a few years back, A Woman of No Importance, The Untold Story of the American Spy Who Helped Win World War II. It intrigues me, although I'm usually not into spy stories. So that's the only thing that keeps me from picking it up and actually reading it. But I got this great copy, I think at a library book sale. And I thought, well, this would be a good opportunity to read it. Even because it's been intriguing me for several years to a certain extent. So, and I know it's made kind of a big splash. A lot of people have read this book and talked about it. So, I'm curious to read it. And this is 6 Great Ideas by Mortimer J. Adler, who also wrote a book about how to read that I want to read also, but so far don't have my hands on a copy. I started reading it many years ago, found it a little bit too dry, ironically, but now I think that I am in a place where I would find it more interesting, so I want to read that one. But I also want to read several of his books. This one, 6 Great Ideas, really interests me. Oh, some kind of interesting ephemera in here. Huh. A newspaper article. In Maryland, adolescents, Aristotle, and Adler. Intriguing. Wonder why somebody taped that in there. So the 6 great ideas are truth, goodness, beauty, liberty, equality, and justice. In the classical education world, we talk a lot about the first 3, truth, goodness, and beauty. And I think actually a lot of the ideas that are circulated in my community come from this book and Mortimer Adler's thoughts on the subject, among other, greats of the past. So I would like to read that for my own edification and instruction, and to give me a bigger foundation in what exactly we're talking about when we talk about truth and goodness and beauty. And this one, I bought this year, ordered it on Thrift Books, I believe, and The Dead Shall Rise by Steve Oni. I was very excited to get it, and I am excited to dive into it. This may be one of the first ones that I pick up. So, oh. Is it signed? Oh. Okay, is that a person who owned the book, or is that the author's signature? I don't know. It's in the middle of the page. And it says 2003, which is when the book was published. Interesting. Anyway, so my husband and I, in the summer, went to see a musical in New York called Parade. And Parade, the musical, is based on a crime, a real crime that took place 100-ish years ago in Georgia, and ended in the lynching and murder of a Jewish man. And this is the investigation into the crime, the original crime that happened, and whether or not the man who was lynched and hung, if he actually committed the crime or not. Unfortunately, I think it's one of those where there are no 100% clear-cut answers. He was originally convicted of the crime. The jury found him guilty, but that court case, there was a lot of shenanigans, shall we say, going on, and it honestly was not a fair trial. And so subsequently, the governor of Georgia at the time granted him a stay, or I don't know what you call it, but basically that his execution would not take place until they had been able to further analyze the evidence and retrial, etc. And unfortunately, the mob got a hold of him before they were able to do that. So this question has been raised in court multiple times since then. In fact, I think the case is again under trial right now. Anyway, very intriguing to me. I love mysteries, real life mysteries, sort of things like this. And this guy, Steve Oni, has done a lot of research, and this is basically the definitive, or perhaps the only book on the subject currently available. So I am anxious to dig into that and read about it and find out a little bit more about the key characters involved, and if they know, I don't know, any more conclusions that could be drawn. The other books that I want to read, I think I may have left the one copy at work because I cannot find it. And I can't exactly remember the name of it. If I remember the name of it, or if I'm able to look it up, I'll put it on the screen here. But I do know the author's name is Scott. I know how to spell his last name, but I don't know how to say it. A-N-I-O-L. I would say Aniol. Anyway, he has written several books on the subject of worship, particularly in the context of music, worship in the church. And so I have a paperback of one of those books that I want to read. And then I have a digital Kindle version of another one. So I would like to get to both of those. I bought them this fall, but have just been too busy this fall to get to them. So I would like to read them in this coming year. So though that is my quick rundown of the nonfiction books that I would like to get to in 2024. We'll see how many of them I'm actually able to get to, in addition to all of the fiction that I already showed you in my reading journal that I have definite plans to read or aspirations for reading. So there we go. For realsies now, signing off, and I will talk to you later. Bye.